They say marriage is a partnership, a shared yoke between two souls pulling the weight of life side by side. But somewhere along the line, I began to feel like the only one doing the pulling. My name is Ethan Cole, 38, project manager at a mid-tier tech firm, and until recently, a man under the illusion that he had a happy marriage. My wife, Samantha, was the center of my world, a vibrant, sharp-witted woman with a contagious laugh and a fire in her eyes that could light up the darkest corners of my day. We met during our last year in college and were married 3 years later. Now, 7 years deep, I can tell you love is not lost all at once. It dies in quiet increments, like a candle snuffed slowly by an unseen hand. The first sign was subtle. Samantha started going to the gym more frequently. At first, I was supportive, encouraged it even. She said it helped clear her mind. But then came the secrecy. She changed her phone password, started taking calls in the bathroom with the faucet running. When I asked, she brushed it off with, "Just work stuff, Ethan. Stop being so dramatic." Dramatic. A word I'd never heard from her in that tone before. Still, I gave her space. Space turned into distance. Distance into silence. And then came Jake. Jake was my coworker, charming, easy on the eyes, the kind of guy who wore confidence like a tailored suit. He joined the company last year and quickly made himself indispensable. People liked him, men admired him, women noticed him, including Samantha. They met at a company dinner I hosted. She laughed at all his jokes that night, leaned in a little too close when she spoke. I noticed but told myself not to overthink. Samantha had always been social, flirty even. That's just who she was. But over the next few weeks, Jake kept popping up. He'd text me at odd hours, asking about projects that didn't require urgency. One weekend, he accidentally showed up at the same hiking trail Samantha and I frequented. She brushed it off as coincidence. I wanted to believe her. Until the message. It was a Wednesday evening, quiet in the house except for the low hum of the dishwasher. Samantha left her phone on the kitchen counter while she stepped outside to take a call. The screen lit up. Last night was wild. Still sore. Jay. My heart stopped. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling like a teenager caught cheating on a test. I didn't dare open it, locked of course, but the preview was enough. When she returned, I asked her directly. She blinked, the mask of composure slipping for a brief moment before she said, "It's a gym joke. Jake was in a cycling class I went to. We're sore from it. A cycling class." Right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, our backs to each other, feeling the canyon that had formed between us. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when exactly my wife had become a stranger. The next day, I confided in my sister, Maya. She was always the sharper one between us, a therapist by profession, brutally honest by nature. "She's hiding something," Maya said after I laid it all out. "You're not crazy. Trust your gut. People don't just change routines like that unless they're chasing something or someone." "But what if I'm wrong?" "Then you'll find out you're wrong. But if you're right and do nothing, you'll hate yourself for it." I took her words seriously. 2 nights later, I told Samantha I'd be working late. Instead, I waited outside our house until she left, then followed her car from a safe distance. She drove across town to a modern condo complex. Parked. Entered Building C. I waited. An hour passed. Then another. No text from her. No call. She came home close to midnight. I asked how yoga was. She didn't look me in the eye. "Tiring," she said, already heading toward the bathroom. I caught a whiff of unfamiliar cologne as she passed. That was the moment I knew. But knowing and confronting are 2 different things. I needed more. Proof. I wanted to understand not just what she did, but why. What had I done wrong? Was I boring? Had I been inattentive? She began sleeping with her phone under her pillow. Her gym bag smelled like aftershave. The affection faded, replaced by polite indifference. She wasn't even cruel, just absent. I started watching her. Not in the Hollywood thriller kind of way, but in the methodical, painful way only a betrayed husband could understand. Every word she said was dissected. Every action analyzed. Her laughter became suspicious. Her silences loaded. One evening, we attended a friend's engagement party. Samantha looked stunning. Hair up, sleek black dress, heels that made her a head taller than usual. She mingled effortlessly, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and danced like she was 17 again. I watched her across the room, spinning under soft lights, and realized something unbearable. I wasn't part of her world anymore. I was the furniture she passed on her way to something better. Later that night, she kissed me on the cheek, whispered goodnight, and rolled away. In the darkness, I whispered to myself, I wasn't losing my wife. I was watching her transform, hoof by hoof. Because that's how it felt. Like she was shedding her humanity, becoming something wild, untamed. A racehorse with no reins. And I, the fool, standing in the stable wondering where it all went wrong. That was the night I stopped asking questions. That was the night I decided to listen instead. To the silences. To the lies between her words. To the truth behind her distance. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not without evidence. Not without understanding the full scope of her betrayal. But I was no longer blind. I had taken the blindfold off, and what I saw terrified me. Because it wasn't just about infidelity. It was about erasure. She wasn't cheating on me. She was replacing me. And I intended to find out exactly why. The following morning, the house felt colder, not physically, but in its atmosphere. Even the sound of the coffee machine sputtering to life couldn't cut through the growing silence between us. Samantha sat across the table, scrolling through her phone, chewing on a piece of toast like it had committed a personal offense. No good morning, no eye contact. I stared at her, memorizing her, studying every line of her face like a detective profiling a suspect. Got anything planned after work today? I asked. She didn't look up. Yoga. Again. Of course. I nodded, sipped my coffee, and bit my tongue until I could taste blood. Later that day, at the office, Jake strutted into the conference room like he owned the building. Same smug grin, same overconfident walk. He plopped into the seat across from me and adjusted his cufflinks, like we were on the verge of hosting a TED Talk. Morning, Ethan, he said with that manufactured charm. Morning. Our eyes met for a fraction too long. I wanted to see it in his face. The guilt, the doubt, the twitch of a liar trying to suppress the truth. But Jake was slick. Or at least he thought he was. I forced a smile. Samantha says hi. He froze just briefly, blinked once, then offered a shallow chuckle. She's great, man. You're lucky. Lucky. I nodded, and in that moment, something shifted inside me. Whatever pain had been bubbling was cooling into something colder, more focused. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. That wouldn't give me closure. What I needed was confirmation. A confession. Something I could hold up to the light like a forensic slide. By that weekend, I had decided, no more guesswork. I bought a small, discreet security camera, one of those motion-activated devices you can hide in a bookshelf. I installed it in our living room while Samantha was at yoga, camouflaging it between old travel souvenirs we never looked at anymore. It faced the front door and the couch. If Jake was coming over, I'd know. The next evening, I told Samantha I had to leave town for a 2-day seminar. She barely reacted. Cool, she muttered, already texting someone. No, I'll miss you. No questions about where. Just indifference. That told me everything I needed to know. I left the next morning but didn't go far, just checked into a hotel across town. I gave it one night. When I came back the following evening, she was home, lounging on the couch in sweatpants, watching some reality show like it had been a quiet night in. She kissed me on the cheek with all the passion of a barista handing over a latte. How was the seminar? Enlightening. Later, after she fell asleep, I pulled the SD card from the camera and locked myself in the garage to watch the footage on my laptop. There it was. 2 hours after I'd left, Jake arrived. No hesitation, no nerves. He let himself in with a key. My key. My jaw clenched so tightly it ached. They sat on the couch like it was theirs. Laughed. Shared wine. He kissed her neck. She moaned. Then she said something that made my stomach turn to concrete. You're so much more exciting than Ethan. He's just there. Jake grinned. He's like a pet. You feed him, pat him on the head, and he stays loyal. They laughed. Louder this time. I closed the laptop slowly, as if slamming it would make the image disappear. My breathing was shallow. My hands trembled, not with heartbreak, but with rage wrapped in ice. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, every blink replaying their words. A pet. Loyal. Like I was some domesticated fool, walking myself in circles while they rode the thrill of betrayal. But I didn't break. No. I planned. The next day, I returned to work like nothing had changed. I smiled at Jake in the hallway. I even joked with him during lunch. If he sensed anything, he didn't show it. Maybe he thought I was too weak, too slow to catch on. I started sending Samantha anonymous texts from a burner app. Simple ones at first. You dropped your mask. Does Jake taste better in our bed? She grew nervous, edgy. Jumped at every phone notification. Kept her phone face down. Her texts to Jake became shorter, her calls briefer. I knew because I'd installed a tracking app. She never noticed. She confronted me a few days later. Have you talked to anyone about us? She asked, standing by the kitchen sink. Us. I tilted my head. What about us? She paused, her eyes darting to mine, searching for something, guilt, anger, knowledge. She found only calm. That made her uneasy. Nothing. Never mind. The next weekend, I invited Maya over. She saw right through me the second she walked in. You found something, she said as we sat in the backyard. I nodded, slid the laptop over to her, and let the footage play. She watched in silence. No gasp, no comments, just a slow exhale at the end. Are you going to confront her? Not yet. What's the goal here, Ethan? I want her to know that I know. But more than that, I want her to feel what I felt. Not just pain, powerlessness, disgrace. Maya didn't approve. I saw it in her eyes. But she didn't stop me either. Later that night, I waited until Samantha was in the shower. I copied a few screenshots from the footage onto a flash drive. Then I printed one still, Jake and Samantha kissing, time-stamped, crystal clear, and slid it under her pillow. I said nothing. She didn't find it that night. Or the next. But on the third night, she did. I heard the sharp intake of breath from across the room. The crinkle of paper. Then the silence. She didn't turn to me. Didn't speak. Just got up, left the bedroom, and closed the door behind her. I stayed in bed, eyes closed, waiting for the sound of galloping hooves. Samantha didn't sleep in our bed that night. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't need to. She hadn't left the house, which meant she had chosen the guest room, a space that, until then, had only ever been used for out-of-town relatives or folded laundry. It was a quiet confession. In the morning, I found her in the kitchen. She looked like someone who had been wrung dry. Her eyes were puffy, lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't speak, just sipped from her mug and avoided eye contact. But something had changed. Her silence was no longer dismissive, it was defensive, nervous. I joined her at the table, taking my time. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, deliberate. So, who gave you the key? She flinched, almost imperceptibly. A crack in the marble. Samantha lowered her mug, fingers twitching. I don't know what you mean. I let the silence stretch. It hovered like smoke between us. You gave him my key, Sam. Her eyes darted toward me, then away. Her throat bobbed. I didn't mean to. I didn't plan for any of this. Liar, I said softly. You planned every moment. You scheduled your betrayal like a spin class. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down, ashamed, but still didn't apologize. I stood up, calmly placed my mug in the sink, and left the room. I didn't want her sorry. I wanted her unsettled. And judging by her clenched jaw and trembling fingers, she was. Over the next few days, we became polite strangers in our own home. Samantha didn't ask me how my day went. I didn't pretend to care where she was going. She walked softer, spoke less. She checked her phone obsessively, but I noticed she no longer smiled when she looked at it. Jake had gone quiet. Of course he had. I'd sent him a message, too. She's not who you think she is. Neither am I. No name. No number. Just words dropped into his inbox like a ticking clock. I knew what I was doing. Not revenge, calibration. I wasn't going to explode. I was going to erode them both. But the weight of deception has a way of bleeding through cracks. One evening, I returned home to find Samantha in the backyard, staring blankly at the garden she never cared about before. She was hugging herself, as if her bones had turned brittle. When I approached, she turned slowly. Was it just to punish me? She asked. Her voice was fragile, raw. I tilted my head. What makes you think I've started? Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I know what I did. I know what I became. You don't have to keep twisting the knife. I stepped closer, staring into the eyes I once thought I knew. You didn't just cheat, Sam. You disassembled us. Quietly, carefully, like it was a project. Her bottom lip quivered. I felt invisible, like I was just a part of your routine. You were my everything, I said, the bitterness seeping into every syllable. You just stopped seeing it. She sat down on the patio bench, burying her face in her hands. I didn't mean to fall for him, she whispered. I laughed quietly. You didn't fall. You galloped. The silence after that was the kind that sours the air. That night, I watched her sleep in the guest room. Not out of affection, but out of curiosity. She was curled up, small. A shell of herself. No makeup. No bravado. Just a woman who finally saw the consequences of her choices standing at the end of the hallway. But sympathy has limits. And mine had reached its edge. I reached out to Maya the next day. I needed perspective. Not advice. Just someone who could see the picture from the outside. She met me at a cafe, no pretense. So, what's next? She asked, stirring her coffee. You've made your point. Have I? I asked. Has she even felt a fraction of what I did? Maya gave me a hard look. She's breaking, Ethan. You can see it. Good. No, she snapped. That's not good. You don't win by dragging her through the mud. You win by rising out of it. I exhaled, pressing my palms against the table. What if I don't want to rise yet? What if I need her to understand, really understand, that she didn't just betray a marriage, she betrayed a man who would have done anything for her? Maya leaned in. Then make her face it. Not with secrets. Not with cryptic notes. With truth. That night, I waited until the house was quiet. I knocked on the guest room door. She opened it slowly, surprise written all over her face. I want you to come with me, I said. Where? Downstairs. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd once planned vacations, laughed over burnt toast, talked about kids we never had. I pulled out the laptop and played the video again. The footage. Jake. The kiss. Her words. She watched in horror, a hand over her mouth. But I didn't flinch. I watched her watching it. Her eyes watered. Her body trembled. When the video ended, I closed the lid. I wanted you to see yourself from the outside, I said. She wiped at her eyes, breath hitching. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know how I let it get this far. I nodded. That's the thing, Sam. It didn't get this far. You brought it here. Willingly. Silence fell. I didn't come here to scream. I continued. Or throw things. I came to return the mirror. She stared at me, confused. You turned me into something small, Sam. Something predictable. A loyal dog while you ran wild. But the truth is, you didn't outgrow me. You just forgot who I was. Tears fell freely now. I'm ending this, I said. Not out of hate. Out of mercy, for both of us. You can keep the house. I'll sort out the details with a lawyer. She broke then. Not in sobs, but in silent collapse. Her shoulders shook. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, like it might keep her grounded. I stood up, walked around the table, and placed the house key in front of her. The next time you give someone a key, I said softly, Make sure it's not to someone else's stable. Then I walked out.